Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we are going to be talking about the increasing tropical activity that is taking place in the Atlantic Ocean. As always, be sure to like and subscribe as it does help the channel grow, and we're just going to get right into it here. So you can see in the Atlantic Ocean, it's been a relatively, quiet season. You had a little bit of activity and it's kind of tapered off, and now we just got boom, four systems here in the Atlantic. Now we're going to focus on the two that are actually invest today, because those are the ones that are more prominent and more closer to developing, so to speak. So we have invest 98L closer to Africa here near the Cabo Verde Islands, and off to the west of that we have invest 99L, which 98L has a 70% chance of forming in the next 7 days, while 99L has a 40% chance. And we still have other disturbances here, like this one that's closing in on the Caribbean, 30% chance of development, as well as the storm that's going to be heading, or the disturbance that's going to be heading into the Gulf of Mexico. All right. So all these storms have a chance to develop, but we're going to focus on the two invests. We have 98L and 99L that we're going to focus on for today. So starting with 98L, if we look at this here, so showers and thunderstorms continue to show some signs of organization, and in association with a broad area of low pressure located a few hundred miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands, environmental conditions are favorable, and a tropical depression could form over the weekend when it moves to the west northwest. But after that, upper level winds are expected to hinder the development after that. All right. So then we have 99L over here, which kind of has like the same thing, right? So environmental conditions are marginally conducive, but then you can see upper level winds are forecast to become unfavorable for any further development after that. All right. So basically, over the next next few days, expect these two storms to maybe form into a depression or a storm, but then taper off due to the upper level winds, which is typical because we are in an El Nino season for this year. So here we have 98L, maximum winds right now 25 knots, around 30 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure is 1,009 millibars. If we look at this on the satellite, let's actually play it here, and you can see it. There is some like rotation, right? There's definitely a low pressure system, like a surface low. You can see storms are rotating, but it's nowhere near organized enough to become a tropical storm, let alone a hurricane. We do have some, increasing thunderstorm activity, which of course is a good sign. Again, generally a rotating broad area of low pressure, but it's really the storms really have to start, building and rotating for it to really start developing into a tropical storm. All right, as you can see, here's the current location of the low pressure system, about 31 degrees west and about 15.5 degrees north. So you can see the Cabo Verde Islands off the coast of Africa are literally right over there to the east. If we look at some model track guidance, not really affecting any landmass yet. Moving off to about the west northwest or northwest over the next 5 to 7 days. You can see some GEFS model tracks here. You can see how it does, kind of like what the National Hurricane Center was saying, right? It undergoes some brief strengthening, maybe gets to near 1,000 millibars or so, maybe a depression or a storm, and then you can see the darker blues, which is a higher pressure, meaning it weakens after that once again. And if we look here at the GEPS model tracks, you can see again, in general, you can see that strengthening and then that re-weakening, but a couple models still have it staying strong. But of course, those we would consider those outliers. But you can see the general consensus here. Maybe on these set of models, maybe it gets between 990 and 1,000 millibars of pressure, so a little stronger. Then it will still weaken again to a tropical depression. So if we look here at the intensity guidance, you can see a lot of models do have some hope for this to become a tropical storm, maybe even stay there over the next week. Of course, there are a fair amount of models that also do keep it below that threshold. So again, it's pretty much like a 50-50 split here. But yes, a lot of these models do have it hitting tropical storm status at some point. It's just whether it stays there or not is the main question. And of course, another question is, will it affect any land masses, which at the moment seems like that'll be a no. All right, so if we look at here on the HWRF, which is kind of like a pretty good intensity forecast model, which is why I like it. You can see 98Ls over here. Here's 99L. We'll take a look at that in a second. You can see kind of starting to move to the northwest, and there is a little brief area, right, the little speckle of tropical storm force winds indicated by the green, 34 knots, aka 39 miles an hour or more, as it moves to the northwest, but it doesn't seem to hold it for that long. You can see 39 knots, so a little bit stronger winds. You can see it's right near the center right there. It's pretty hard to see. But yeah, it'll keep moving to the northwest. Maybe it gets up to 40 knots, but then it just keeps on weakening and weakening. So that's what it's looking like there for 98L. Really, not much to talk about in terms of strength. If we look at the relative humidity, right, you can see kind of helps. It kind of does carry that moisture with it. You can see it's mainly off to the east, right, because of that wind shear kind of blowing it away. You can really see the evidence of that wind shear right here, because now it becomes completely detached with the moisture, and now we start to see some dry air getting sucked into it over the next few days or so. This is like about 3 days out. And then it really just starts to lose the strength because now it's got no moisture with it, and it just kind of struggles from there. So really, not really much going on with 98L, but with 99L, similar, I would say similar strength forecasts right now, but this one at least does have the chance to affect the landmass, making it more significant. So this one also 25 knot winds currently, 30 miles an hour, same pressure, 1009 millibars, I believe, as the first one did, right? Yes, 98L did have the same pressure there. All right. And if we look at the satellite, let's play that. Really no, now this one, the storms really aren't rotating, at least 98L, you saw some sort of rotation. This one is pretty much just a bigger mass of thunderstorms just kind of moving along from east to west. There is a little bit of rotation. It's kind of hard to see. You can see if you look at these clouds here, you can see and then if you look under it, you can see that rotation, but it's hard to see under the thunderstorms because it's just, the thunderstorms are on top of the low pressure, the center of circulation, so it's hard to see, meaning it's a pretty disorganized system at the moment. All right. Here's your current low position, 44 degrees west and about 13 and a half degrees north. I just like giving the coordinates just to show you because I know a lot of people, like to see the coordinates, so I just point those out for you. And then here we go with the model track guidance. You can see pretty fair agreement, at least over the next 3-4 days here with these models. This is the kind of agreement you like to see, right? Pretty much heading straight towards the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico, right? And then but they're kind of uncertain of what happens after that. Some have it just pivoting this way, some have it pivoting this way, some have it keep going. Oh, whoa. some models have the storm just keep on going, but there is an agreement over the next 72 hours that it will head in this direction. Pretty much all the models do agree on that. If we look at the strength forecast, again, not really getting much, pretty much staying at the same strength over the next 3 to 5 days. And we'll talk about why a little bit later on in the video coming up shortly. If we look at so that was the GEFS model tracks, right? These are GEPS model tracks. And again, these have a lot of outliers like this one. I don't know what the heck that is. They have it like going down here and then coming back up here. I don't know what that is. But they do have it a little stronger than the GEFS, but still nothing strong to speak of. I mean, and the models are also in a bigger disagreement, if you will. Look at the intensity guidance, though. A lot more of these models, right, do not really have it in tropical storm status. I mean, one outlier does. Actually, 2 have it reaching tropical storm status, but then it just falls down again. So, bottom line, this storm isn't really getting much stronger either, and it's mainly in part due to those, higher upper level winds, aka wind shear. But if we do look at the sea surface temperatures, you can see currently where 98L is sitting, about 82, 83 degrees sea surface temperatures, which is pretty good, right? If we look towards 99L, about 84 degrees. So the waters are pretty warm. So again, the answer to the question why are these 2 storms not going to develop that much? Well, it's due to that wind shear that we have in place. But if we look over to the Gulf of Mexico, I mean, it is piping hot. Like you used to only be able to see 90 degrees and it'd be like, in certain isolated spots, but pretty much in this zone, this entire zone is around 89, 90 degrees. So the Gulf of Mexico, especially the center of it, is piping hot and it's ready for whatever storm comes its way, which is what that other disturbance going there is going to be doing. So that's why we're going to have to keep an eye on that over the next couple of days. But there was also that observation, right? That 101 degree water observation. I think it was somewhere near south coast of Florida, near the Keys. Very, very impressive. All right, so now obviously this one we're only picking up about 90 degrees, but still very warm waters still holding across much of the Atlantic basin at the moment. So if we look at the H-Wharf model again for 99L this time, you can see kind of formed, but it looks pretty disorganized. But if you look very closely, you can see green speckles. You can also look at the max wind at the top right of your screen, showing that 34 knots is there somewhere in that storm. So there are tropical storm force winds. You can see it gets a little bit more organized and a little bit more strong. We got a center low now, maybe 43 knots, so maybe 45 to 50 mile an hour winds kind of goes to the north of the Lesser Antilles and north of Puerto Rico, and then just keeps on moving to the north, still as a weaker but still there, a tropical storm. So this one, I feel like the H-Wharf model has more confidence in it, but the other models have less confidence, while 98L, that's kind of swapped. Right? With the other system, the other models, like these models right here, were more confident in the storm, and then the H-Wharf wasn't as confident. So seems like a bit of a contradiction there, but we will see how this continues to play out over the next couple of days. If we look at the relative humidity again, except for 99L this time, you can see we still got a lot of moisture right off to the center and to the east as it moves to the north, but there will be some dry air starting to get tangled up in that one as well. And you can also see the upper level winds that are just cutting right across the low center. So that's, of course, not good news either. If you look at the tropical intensity index, you can see much of the Gulf and parts of the northern Caribbean, we're seeing highly favorable for development. But you can see in this zone right here, where 99L is going, not necessarily as favorable, maybe a little bit more unfavorable. And then favorable conditions back to where 98L is located. And these are just at the moment. Of course, these favorability zones could always change as time goes on. Here we have the 850 millibar vorticity signature. There is 98L. 99L looks a little bit more, circular. That's what you want on these vorticity maps. Like there's Hurricane Hillary, for example, right? That's very circular. We see those reds and pinks really getting in there. Of course, we'll be talking about that soon, at what role it could play in affecting the United States. But you can see 98L. So Hillary is kind of like a reference of what you want the storm, or what the storm is supposed to look like. 99L is there. It's just a little smaller and a little bit weaker in the vorticity signature, while 98L is a little bit more elongated, meaning not quite as organized yet. But there's something behind that looks a little circular too, so maybe we'll have to keep our eyes on that. If we look at the dry air at the moment, and again, there's that other system that seems to be coming off of Africa right now over here. But here's 98L. You can see kind of rotating there in the center. We have 99L. Both 98L is getting a little bit more dry air than 99L is, and the explanation for that is because 99L is further south, and generally once you get further south, especially like on the drier air tends to stay on the little bit higher latitudes. So if you're able to go south and avoid it, that would be the best case scenario for these tropical systems. If we look at this oceanic heat content, which is that how much heat do we have available below the ocean surface, which is what really gets those hurricanes going. Gulf of Mexico, it's starting to build up, almost there, right? But the Caribbean is where it's really at. I mean, all the way at the end of the graph here in terms of like the key. So not much over here. We have warm sea surface temperatures, but not really much warm, in terms of the below the ocean surface. But we definitely do have that in the Caribbean. So if one of these disturbances moves over there, the let's just say Cuba and Mexico and the United States might be in trouble if a storm moves over that kind of water. We look at the wind shear. In general, 98L is right here, 99L is over here. So they're battling a little bit higher shear at the moment. I would say it's more moderate, like 30, 40 knots. So it's not terrible, but when a storm is weak enough like that, it can only take like 20 knots of shear to like knock it off of its path, right? But the Gulf of Mexico, pretty low shear at the moment. So that could be a telling sign for what could happen with our other disturbance that could be heading there. So 4 systems to keep an eye on, not to mention Hillary in the Pacific, which could affect the United States. If we look at the ensemble-based probabilities here, you can see 98L, they're calling for 100% chance of forming that. 60, 70% chance with 99L. And then this other disturbance off over here, maybe 20 to 30% chance, and then a little bit lower for the storm in the Gulf of Mexico. But we'll see how these build here as time goes on. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for more updates. I'm the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.